I'm a BraveMaker.
I am a BraveMaker.
I am a BraveMaker.
BraveMaker is always about taking big risks, going after those big dreams, and not letting anybody tell you no, that you can't do it.
BraveMaker to me means courageous voices, diverse voices, standing up for what means something to you.
BraveMaker means to show up in your authentic self and telling the stories that you feel will resonate with other people. Really just showing up as your true self in the world.
It was a film screening, but also it was a healing opportunity and journey. So really honored to have been a part of that.
BraveMaker, what that means to me is not just something you say. You actually have to get out there and be vulnerable and push those limits.
It means getting out of your way. My fear is the thing that stops me, and my ability to be brave is the thing that moves me forward.
Really, I've come to realize that you have to create your own door and walk through it.
And you make your own opportunity.
You don't need approval from anybody.
Really know why you want to tell the stories that you're telling.
How BraveMaker compares to other festivals is amazing. The filmmakers feel welcomed, invited, and like we are a key part of the festival. The organization and the execution is top-notch. It's been amazing to watch the community here. It's been amazing to watch how everybody seems to want to interact with each other. You can really feel that here. This is an incredible community.
Take your risk, and if it doesn't work out at the moment, it wasn't meant to be, build up your career and ask again, ask again, ask again.
If you can disidentify with your failures as being things that somehow you should try to avoid, as opposed to failures being something that you embrace, because in order to do that, you had to risk.
Failure is just a learning tool. Failure is just, what are we not going to do in the future?
Push through every freaking obstacle. If I quit, then who? I do this because I need it, and I do this because I think everybody else will benefit from it.
Elizabeth was a seed planter, and she was one of the best nurturers on the planet. The reason I'm here in this room with you is because of her. The story of her is the story of me, and the story of me is the story of you, because we're all here for a reason, and we all have a story to tell.
I believe that films are powerful when they're able to touch the soul. And I believe that every single one of the films we watched tonight did that in such a powerful way.
I am a BraveMaker.
I am a BraveMaker.
Yo soy un BraveMaker.
We are BraveMakers.
I am a BraveMaker.
I am a BraveMaker, and so are you.
Hey, what is going on, everybody? I am a BraveMaker, and so are you. My name is Tony Gapistone. I am an actor, a screenwriter, and a director, and I'm coming at you live from Redwood City, California. This is episode 192. 192. We're 8 episodes away from doing our live show for our 200th episode, July 13th, at our opening night for the film festival in Redwood City, California. Go to BraveMaker.com and get your tickets today. I'm telling you, it's going to sell out. Early bird are going to get the worm. We have a limited capacity because of changes in the theater in Redwood City. Better seats, bigger seats, plushier seats, clushier. They're plushier, but they made bigger seats, so less capacity. So get your tickets at BraveMaker.com. But with no further ado, again, I'm Tony Gapistone. I'm he, him pronouns, brown hair, yellow glasses, and a white shirt in my ridiculously busy studio with pink BraveMaker font behind me, striped walls, and faux greenery everywhere. But I got a really cool guest today who is an actor and a disability advocate and an amputee who is the fittest guy on Instagram. I love it. Let's talk to Kurt YAEGER. What's up, Kurt?
Hey, how's it going, Tony?
Kurt is coming to us from Los Angeles, episode 192. Kurt, we like to do an inclusive and descriptive description. So Go ahead for all the people who can't see you. Tell them what you look like.
Yeah, I'm a Caucasian guy. I'm wearing a button-down shirt. It's a Hawaiian pattern. And I got a hat that says The Outpost on it. It's my friend's company up in Big Bear. They do rentals. And right now I have a really cool mustache.
You sure do. And it's a trucker hat, and trucker hats are my absolute fave. Even though some people want to say they bring a certain air to them. I don't know. I like it. I'm with it. Like, bring it, wear it with that mustache. You're rocking it.
Yeah.
Well, hey, I'm so glad that you're on the podcast and live show today, and that we found you through the interwebs. Shout out to Amy, our producer. You are all over the place. You're on NCIS, you're on Netflix, you're doing a bunch of cool stuff. You got a bike hanging out behind you. Talk about your origin story. We always like to hear, how do people get into the entertainment biz?
My origin story is probably as ubiquitous as most people's. I rode BMX professionally for a bunch of years, doing flips over jumps and stuff, and X Games kind of stuff. I did that for many years, and I was actually working on my master's in hydrogeology. So I was doing groundwater science and research at Berkeley Labs, doing that stuff. And I had a bad motorcycle accident where I lost my leg and broke my pelvis in half and tore my bladder in half and broke 7 vertebrae, clapped my lungs, broke all my right ribs, concussion, ACL, MCL, and deep vein thrombosis. So I had this big accident. It took me like 2 years to recover.
Wow.
And I fell into acting as a byproduct of kind of dreaming about what my life could be, and then like enacting on that dream and saying, you know what, I have one life to live. I had a near-death experience. Why not?
Yeah.
So
cool. So you're also a Bay Area former resident. You used to live up in South City, which is really cool. So talk about that first initial step into it. Did you put yourself into a casting call? Did someone spot you? Did you get the headshots, then move to LA? Let's hear some of those initial steps and how that worked for you.
Well, I think I think of things from like kind of a science way of thinking, like Occam's razor, reducing everything and whatever's left must be true. And so what I did was like, I thought, okay, what does an agent need? And I read every book on acting and writing and directing. And I said, well, what does an agent need? Well, an agent needs to see that you can do the work, not hear it, not be told. So I was like, well, let me audition for every single Craigslist short film thing that I could do. And then I did. And I was like, well, who's going to edit this? Well, I better learn editing. So then I learned editing and, put it together, and then sent some material out. And agents seemed to like me, and, they were like, oh, this is good material. I mean, that took a while. You know what I mean? That took like 1.5 years of working for free, basically. And then I did this audition that a friend put me up for. He took a photo of me, and there's this website that's no longer active called Amputees in Hollywood. And he put this really cool photo of me up without my permission.
Oh, okay.
And this company called and said, hey, we want you to read for this audition, but can you speak Farsi? And I was like, absolutely.
Did you, or did you just start?
Not at all. So I learned phonetically
Nice.
how to say these few lines. There wasn't too many, so it wasn't too bad. And I booked it, and it had this really, what I thought was a goofy title. And it was in LA. And so they brought me down to LA when I booked this role. And it turned out to be Charlie Wilson's role with Amy Adams and and so what's crazy is I did this role, and I think I was there for like 12 days total.
Wow.
And I did these scenes, I'm like crying, and I'm like talking about my leg. I'm like Afghani, and I'm like, Darciat Mikhone, which is like my leg hurts too much. And Mike Nichols, after like 10 takes, came up to me. He's like, man, it's so good. How long have you been acting? And I was like, yeah.
Yeah.
So what ended up happening was we talked, and he said, I've told this to a few people, but you need to do this. And that was really the first time in my life that a ridiculously high level professional qualified me. And so it put this thought in my head that that thought overpowered my doubt. And then I was like, maybe I should try this.
Yeah.
And then really worked at it.
I really love your premise of saying, what do agents need? I think that's a really cool consideration, but that also it meant you had to say, what could you offer the world? Not everybody could be all things, although you obviously found out how to speak Farsi and did that thing. But you recognize, oh, I'm really good at this BMX biking thing. I am an amputee. I am unique and I am set apart in this way. And, we could use the word brand. Like, do we know our brand? Do we know our voice? So as actors or, filmmaker, performers, whatever, putting that your foot forward in that world, I think is really, really important. Something I take away from is what sets me out. My backstory, the fact that, I was I am an ordained pastor turned filmmaker, director, and I really like to poke at religion, and I like drama and romantic comedies, but also quirky character, so when we know those things, we can put those things forward. So did you find yourself then becoming like the go-to person? Because when I do some research, it seems like there's a lot of write-ups about you and your disability and the awareness that you're bringing in the characters you're playing. Can you talk about that process at all?
Yeah, it's like, your brand, right? Like you are always figuring it out, and then it's always changing as you're growing.
Yeah.
So, I try to always think of I guess it's like conscientiousness, where you think of what can I do for this other person that makes their life easier?
Gosh, I love
Because
that.
if you always go to someone hoping that they'll turn you into something, that takes super amount of effort. But if they only have to make one phone call and they know that it's going to work, then they will, right? So you do all the work and everything yourself. But a lot of the even the beginnings, an agent wanting information, you see write-ups about, me in articles. I didn't wait for a PR agency to do work for me. And, I reached out to my first article, I think, was in the San Francisco Chronicle. And I did a movie called Tenderloin, directed by Michael Anderson. And I did a feature film. And I was like, how do I get press? And they're like, it's $3,000 a month for a PR person. I'm like, well, I ain't got that kind of.
Right.
And I was like, how do I do it? And I'm like, well, how do they do it? And I'm like, they have to just reach out. So then I looked online, found a good article by a guy. And I was like, oh, this guy's kind of cool. And I'm like, oh, here's his email address. So I wrote him and I said, hey, would you want to do a story about this?
Come on.
And he said, absolutely.
Yeah.
But I did the work of a PR person, researched that journalist, and then qualified his existence by saying, I actually liked your article. And then he was like, okay, well, what do you got to say, kid?
Yeah.
And then that article started, and then an agent was like, oh, you have articles too. So it's like qualifying my brand, not just this is my brand, but always trying to find ways to showcase it from a quality perspective. And all your qualities aren't going to be seen all the time. Like if you have an ability to be like a protector, right? You're not always going to be protecting somebody, but in that moment, that can happen. Like you might be super kind and giving, but unless someone's in need, your giving is kind of strange. So it's like having it all timed out right.
I dig that. So I want to talk about some of the roles you've had, specifically some of the shows you've been on, which have taken you all over the place, which seems really cool.
Yeah.
And I want to start with, I first researched you and looked up your Insta. You got all these really cool photos of you're a fit guy, you're working out, you're shirtless and some. And then our team puts together a little promo photo of you, and I see it pop up first. I didn't even see it before. I didn't approve it. I just trust the team to do it. And it popped up in my social media. I was like, wait a second, who is this guy? Long 70s hair, mustache. It did not look like anything I expected of you. So can you talk about this 1970s schlubby guy we see on the image here?
Yeah. Yeah. I change with characters. I mean, my hair's short. Right now it's like totally different.
Yeah.
It's fun. I change all the time. I don't know. I sort of like, I start with the shoes. So I think, what are the shoes that this guy wears?
Literally going, what shoes, walking in your character's shoes. That's cool.
Yeah.
So that's part of your development.
Leans you forward, leans you back, flat foots you.
Yeah.
Are they long and pointy? Are they colorful? Are they bland? Are they, black sneakers like a janitor wears? Like what is it? And then what's under those layers? So
like that.
I've been fortunate. See, here's the crazy thing. Like being an amputee, it's great because it affords you a lot of opportunities because people are like, hey, we need an amputee actor for this.
Mm-hmm.
And you might get typecast to be an amputee.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're playing a cop and then a doctor and then a patient and then a military guy in space and then a military guy on Earth and then they're all an amputee.
Yeah.
You can make the character so different that no one will even recognize you, not just as an amputee, but they don't even know you're in the same project. Like
right.
I did a show called Tell Me a Story in New York. And I did like 8 or 10 episodes on that series. And one of the directors that I worked with loved this show called Quarry that I was in for HBO and Cinemax. And I played like this ruthless contract killer, like just this most despicable human, right? And he didn't even recognize me while we were working together. I'm like, I'm play Suggs, and he's like, wait, you're Suggs? He's
That's
like,
cool.
You're a bastard, And so it's like getting to play with those kind of characters and going all over the place is what I think is finding the way to break out of like whatever typecast that you get stuck in.
Yeah.
I mean, look at that picture. You can see how my prosthetic leg is making that leg bend. That's not like a picture. It's like I didn't put any filling in there, and so it's like showing it off.
Yeah, that's great. But that's the type of inclusion that we need to see in film and TV. And so if you're listening to this podcast and you can't see, obviously Kurt has had a number of different roles, and there's write-ups about him in playing these different characters, but in the image that was shown, it was, this one leg that looked a little bit like there wasn't, part of a leg in it because he's got his prosthetic in there, which is really beautiful. And I think there's something to be said. I'll tell you right now, like as a director and a screenwriter, it motivates me to write characters because this is life. This is the world. The amputee story is important and can and should be a storyline. And there's going to be times when, we just need a cop or we need a teacher and they just happen to be an amputee and we don't ever hear the why or the how. That's really interesting.
Yeah,
I think you're doing a lot. Yeah, you're doing a lot with that. So you've been, did I see a write-up were you on like so many different versions of NCIS playing different characters in all of that universe? Can you talk a little bit about that at all?
Yeah, I guess I was the first actor to be on all incantations of the NCIS universes as a different character.
So cool.
So like they try not to do that because it's the same world.
Right.
So a character from NCIS could go to NCIS LA and they're the character they were in NCIS.
Right.
But I'm playing characters in all different ones, but I look different in each one.
Yeah.
Like no one's like, they're like, is that Sullivan? Is that the bad guy? Because he seems
right.
One.
Which is a testimony to your acting ability. And just as you said earlier, you didn't use the word chameleon, but I'm saying you have a chameleon-like ability when you look at your photos. You're shaving your head, you're wearing different clothes, you're playing different, obviously, personas. And that's really cool. That must be a lot of fun for you to play and to live out.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit more about your process? You talked about the shoes, and I think every actor who's listening is always thinking about what their process is. We have a BraveMaker Acting Academy, and we definitely highlight all the different techniques, like the Hagen and the Meisner and the Stanislavski. But sometimes it's like you make your own and you figure out and you put mission mash together. What are some other kind of practical things you do when you develop a character?
Yeah, for me, like a lot of the, like Uda and Stanislavski, they're about being truthful in the moment and all that stuff. And for me, I think I'm in real life extremely truthful, sometimes detrimentally.
To a fault.
Yeah, I just tell people what I think, and I've learned to be nicer about it. You know what I mean? Like, so I just do. So for me, that wasn't a place to get to. Like, to me, it was truth. What I had to get to was an individual's motivation, because no character in their own story is the villain, virtually. Like, no character thinks that they're the bad guy. They're like, look, I might be doing some bad things, but there are reasons. And so it's like trying to really understand those truthful reasons, and then coming up with the backstory that allows me to access how maybe I could have gone down that particular path if I were put in those circumstances.
Yeah.
And then being like, it doesn't justify them, right? But it's like, man, if I were abandoned, abused, this, that, and done in, and then I went, fuck it. Can I curse on this?
Go for it.
All right. So I was like, fuck. I was like, I should have asked first. Like, I'm breaking, and so fine. I'm gonna burn all of God's children, for instance. Like, boom, fine. Here we go, God. Like, that's not being evil per se. That's just getting revenge. And so, okay, so you have you're vengeful. You start thinking of it that way. Like, I think that's my biggest process.
Cool.
And then something I learned maybe 6 years ago. I'm not a natural memorizer. It's extremely hard for me. Write it out, read it, draw pictures about what the words are. Like, and then I started a method where I ended up looking up like memorization skills. And I looked up a method of where you write the first letter of every word. And then what you're doing is you're creating a shortcut pattern that your brain can remember, as opposed to all the words where like my little dyslexic brain will mix them all up because it's just too much information. So if the line is like, the cat jumped over the hat, it'd be like the, T, C, and then you emphasize words to help you memorize them. And then, so if I'm having this dialogue of like, let's say 20 lines, instead of it being, nearly a page long of stuff to remember, it's only two sentences long of the key letterings. And for me, it's when I memorize it that way, the conjunctions don't screw me up. Like, is versus it versus they versus them versus, like little things that will like go wrong in my brain. But all of the larger words, like proper nouns, proper places, things like that, like I'm like, I can have those locked in. So I learned that memorization technique, and it just freed me up to play a lot more.
I love that. I love it. Every actor is so different. That's why I love acting, but I also love directing too, to figure out what works. So as a director, I'm always interested, when you're working with a director, what are some things that you appreciate that a director does to support you or to direct you well?
Yeah, I think I'm the worst kind of actor for other actors, because I tell directors what I want. I love line reading. I love direction.
Cool. Yeah.
I love, like, I'll do something, and I go, hey, director, I think this. And they might go, I don't know. And I go, how about this? Let me bang one out when I feel good. Yeah, we'll move on, do yours, or vice versa. And if you don't like what I'm doing, tell me. Like, it doesn't hurt my feeling, me personally. Like, if you're like, Kurt, you kind of came in and you did it this way, I want you to punch up that word. And I'm like, done. I understand the psychology of what he's saying, and I'm not offended by like that character changing it. So for me, it's you know, I feel like that's so helpful because then I can almost do that in exactly the way they asked. And then I'd say half the time they go, yeah, that was bad. And I'm like, yeah, I know, right?
Yeah, it's cool.
So-
As a director, I love that. I would ask you that question, and then I would know this is how Kurt likes to work together. And then I'd probably ask, another actor in the scene, and they'd probably say something totally different. And so as a director, I'm lodging all that stuff, going,
Yeah.
this is what Kurt needs, this is what she needs, this is what they need. And yeah, I love that. That's great. Is
Yeah.
there anything you appreciate in the pre-pro process or in the, before production, before you hit set, that would be helpful for other directors to hear? Or actors even advocating for yourself for what you need?
Yeah, I think that like rehearsals where you're not off book, you're playing, we're figuring it out. It's not the director's space to get it where he wants it or she wants it per se. It's more like getting it to where everyone's on the same page.
Yeah.
It's like saying, hey, I'm the contractor, that's the plumber, that's the electrician, that's the foundation guy. So we got to kind of all make sure that everyone understands the general scope of what we're doing, and then can go, hey, if the plumber goes, hey, if I put that there, man, then this is going to be broken over here. And the director, goes, right.
Yeah.
Because not everyone can think of everything.
Yeah, that's great.
And that's great.
I was gonna say in our technology space, that can happen on Zoom if a production can't afford rehearsal in person. I love Zoom table reads and being able to knock some stuff out and kind of workshop things with the actors just on a Zoom. It's been really, really helpful for me. And I know some actors don't want any rehearsal. They want to keep it totally fresh. But that's kind of like, I think, a good happy medium I've experienced in my background. So yeah, I think that's great. Okay, I would love to see, we've got a couple more minutes left. I'd love to hear, do you have any plans for the future? Like, what are your upcoming, projects, if you can talk about them? As an actor, do you also have any plans to write or direct or produce? I'd love to hear any kind of future things that are coming up, Kurt.
Yeah, a feature, the photo from the 70s that you guys saw, where I have that mustache and the goofy hair, is called The Beanie Bubble with Elizabeth Banks and Nakis. So it's the rise and fall of the Beanie Baby empire.
Whoa, you're in that.
Yeah.
That's great.
That's good. And then
The Beanie Bubble coming in what, 2024?
I think it's in July.
Come on, it's coming out in July?
Yeah, on Apple.
Okay, well, that's great. We'll definitely
I'm a horrible actor. I'm like, I don't even know when stuff's coming out.
Well, when you're your own PR person, you're juggling a lot of things here, Kurt.
Oh, really quick, just to change the subject. In your intro, I saw Jevon Wedder. He's Deaf Brothers with Javon. I saw him in one of your clips. Like, it was really cool. Yeah.
Oh, we had last year.
Writer.
Oh, very cool.
And he just wrote and got something Flash Before the Bang that's
Cool.
coming out. So anyways, I just saw him. So I was like,
Yeah.
oh, cool. A homie disabled, person in town on your thing.
Yeah.
Another feature I have coming out is called Sunrise with Guy Pearce and Alex.
Dude, I was going to say, you look like you could be Guy Pearce's brother. You two look very similar. Are you his brother in this movie?
We're family, but we don't know
Okay.
if we're brothers or cousins.
Oh my gosh, dude! You have a Guy. Let's say Guy has a Kurt vibe. How about that? Because I think you definitely have some resemblance.
Guy's
cool.
a nice guy too. Like,
That's cool. Ever since Memento. Oh my gosh, that guy! I love that guy.
L.A. Confidential.
Oh, such a talented. Talk about chameleon too. Very
Have you
chameleon.
seen- what was the one in Australia where it was super like yellowified? It was like an Outback movie.
I don't know, but I'm going to be looking out for the movie with you two in it. That's cool.
Yeah, it's so good.
That's exciting.
What else? Well, I write. I've got 2 features that are out with producers. One of them landed on the blacklist. And then I write shows. So I sold a show to Sony.
Okay.
That I wrote.
Dude, congratulations.
I've got like 2 more features I want to write. But I take a long time thinking about them. Like, to me, this is writing.
Yeah. Thinking, sure.
So my friends like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm working.
Yeah.
They're like, you're staring out the window, you know. I'm like, no, I'm thinking. So I've written maybe 15 pilots and like 20 features.
Amazing.
And the more you write, the just more you realize you wasn't very good, and you just keep doing it and keep doing it.
Yep.
And I started writing because I didn't see anything that was good for me. You know, like, you're not getting auditions because they're like, oh, that's not an amputee role. I'm like, man, I'm more athletic than you guys.
That's
like,
right. That's right.
Backflips on BMX bikes as an amputee today.
Yep.
I ride motorcycles all over the world. So they're like, not sure. And so I'm like, look, if I just write this, fine.
Heck yeah.
And because I didn't have almost like an emotional passion to write, I had like more like a necessity reason to write. So when I sent it to people and they're like, hey, this isn't good, it didn't feel good, but it didn't crush me.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So I was able to dissociate my work from who I am. And that helps.
I'll tell you what, as I listen to you as an actor, you know, more and more of us, that's why I started writing too. I wasn't getting jobs, you know, and I'm a person in a privileged space. I don't have a disability. I am Caucasian. I'm all these things, and it's still hard for me. So if it's hard for me, then it's going to be hard for other minorities and marginalized communities. And so all the more how all of us, we can't just sit around. We can't sit around and wait for someone to just plop that role in our lap. We've got to get out there and initiate. So I love hearing that.
Yeah. And the thing is when you write, you understand acting more. When you direct, you understand writing more. When you do all those things, so every part of the film business, and then outside of it, every part of your life, the more you do, the more you're going to better understand acting.
Yeah.
So it's all important. If you only act and that's all you do, and that's like your 5-day-a-week thing and everything, you're not getting enough other information. You need that Venn diagram of overlap. You need so many overlaps to be able to access the emotion of every type of person you can.
Yeah, actors need to be nuanced people, you know, and people who live life. That's good. This has been episode 192 with Kurt YAEGER, actor, disability advocate. Follow him on all the socials. Be a part of his fan page on Facebook. You can see all this really cool footage and content that he's creating. There's so many news articles about him that have been written. And, you know, this is your official invitation to come to the BraveMaker Film Festival in July, Kurt. We would love to have you be a part.
When is it in July?
It's July 13th through the 16th. If you want to come hang out with us. We'll do some workshops. We'll have you out. We'd love to. That'd be so cool. But
cool.
we're not done with you. We're not done with you. Cool. Okay. Yes, maybe. Okay, good. Awesome. We're not fully done with you yet. We've got just one last question for you. And that's, what's your favorite thing of the week? Your favorite thing
Brave Faves. TV shows, films, books, songs, technology, clothing, podcast, food, and more. These are a few of our favorite people, places, and things. Brave Faves.
My favorite thing of the week is Jury Duty on Amazon. It is a new show, and James Marsden is in it, but it's kind of like in the vein of The Office or Parks and Rec. It's a kind of a mockumentary, but there's one guy who does not realize it's actually a mockumentary. His name is Ronald, and he is hilarious. Everybody else is an actor, and it's called Jury Duty. It's hilarious. That's my Brave fave. What do you got, Kurt?
Okay, I haven't seen it, but I keep seeing the ads for it.
So good, dude. So fun. So funny.
I ran accidentally upon a little bit older show, Tokyo Vice.
Okay, cool.
I never clicked on it. I saw it. I was like, yeah, okay, yeah, you know, and then went away, and it's on HBO or HBO Max or Max. Or
Max
whatever.
now, as of today.
Why would they do that?
Yeah.
Anyways,
change.
Yeah, so that is really, really, really good. I enjoy it because it's like interesting nuance in a different culture that I know nothing about.
Awesome.
You know, and so it's like, just give me more.
Cool. Well, Kurt, really appreciate you being on the show. Thank you so much for your time. I'm going to stay connected and follow up.
Yes.
And if we can promote the Beanie Bubble or anything else coming up, let us know. You'll be seeing more of yourself online through BraveMaker, because our team, which I'll shout out to our great producer Amy Cohen in Austin, Texas, and our intern Jessica Cohen. Jessica's going to create clips from today and put them out on our social media. So we'll tag you. And thanks to Carrie Alley, our social media producer and our podcast editor. This will be up in a week or two on all the podcast platforms because Barnell edits it. So thanks to our crew. And thanks to all of you for watching. We are a nonprofit. So if you want to support us, go to bravemaker.com/donate, become a donor. We have 30 people every month who give us a little something to help us pay for our team and pay for our platforms and all the different things that we do so we can talk to cool people like Kurt. And don't forget the BraveMaker Film Festival, July 13th through the 16th. Get your tickets at bravemaker.com. Kurt, where can people find you? Shout out your social media one last time.
Kurt YAEGER at everything. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. I just post random stuff, and it's all me. I don't have a social media person.
He acts, he PRs, he fitnesses, he does it all, y'all. So follow him. And Kurt, thank you so much.
Electrical too.
Oh, really? We might need some best boys and some grips and stuff like that.
I mean, house stuff. I mean, like
the handy stuff.
I'm a handyman, yeah.
Like a typical creative actor, man. Multi-hyphenate. Well, hey, thank you so much for your time, and we'll hopefully see you soon.
Excellent. Thanks, Tony. I appreciate it.
You got it. And everybody else, thanks for watching. Come back next week. We start talking, interviewing all of our selected filmmakers coming up. So see ya. Bye, everybody.
Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook at BraveMaker.org. Like, subscribe, and share. To become a monthly donor, text the word BraveMaker to 44321 or go to bravemaker.com/donate. Thanks for tuning in.